good. All right, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to today's Monday, March 22nd, 2021 regular council meeting. I'd like to call that meeting to order. Let's jump right in. And are there any added items? Looking around, seeing nobody's hands pop up, I would love to entertain a motion to accept today's agenda. Councillor Ryan, I think you got there first.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Your Worship, I just would like to move that we accept the regular council agenda for Monday, March 22nd as presented. A little slow there.
All right, comments, questions?
You never call me, so
you won the hands up contest. Comments, questions, concerns? Seeing none, I'll call for a vote. All in favor and opposed. That motion is carried. All right, let's move right along to adoption of previous minutes. We have one set to consider. I'll take a motion on that. Councillor Bennett.
Thank you, Worship. I move that the minutes from March 8th, 2021 regular council meeting be adopted as presented.
Excellent.
And I have just one housekeeping item out of that.
Absolutely.
It would be on 5B in the last paragraph. It states with amends where I think it should be amendments.
Okay. All right. Captured, I'm sure.
Thank you.
So we'll a friendly amendment to as amended.
Yes.
Right. Any other errors, omissions, comments, questions? All right, seeing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor and opposed. And that motion carries as well. All right, let's move right along into presentations and delegations. Item 3A, CAO.
Well, thank you, Your Worship. 3A is Town of Olds Annexation Negotiation Report. This report was produced after several years of negotiations with the Mountain View County in regards to an IDP and the requirement for 3/4 sections of land to be annexed to the Town of Olds. We have Natasha Wright from PCPS here to do a brief presentation, and just should say that Mountain View County has approved this annexation report. So this will be the last step before we pass it on to the MGB.
Excellent. Thank you very much, CAO, and good afternoon, Natasha.
Thank you, Your Worship. If I'm able to, I'd like to share my screen just to bring up a map of the annexation area, just so we have an idea if that's something I can do. Okay, so hopefully everyone can see the map on their screen right now.
Mm-hmm.
So the annexation area that we're going to be discussing with the report this afternoon are the 3/4 sections immediately north and east of where the town office is located. So north of Highway 27 and mostly east of Highway 2A. So that's the southeast 4, the northeast 4, and the northwest 4. So for the purposes of the report this afternoon, those are the pieces of land that we're going to be discussing. So for the annexation report, the report does summarize the process that was used by the town and county to consider the annexation, as well as the negotiations that took place over the last year to get to this point. So there are items that the report must cover. The description of the lands to be annexed, which are those on the screen in front of you. The list of matters that were agreed to between the town and county, and any matters that were not agreed to. A description of the public consultation process that was used and a summary of the views that were expressed during that process. So that process would include the consultations, the input and the outcomes with the landowners in the annexation area, as well as the input and process that was used with the general public. So for the items that the town and county have agreed to, they did agree to the lands that are identified, those on the map. Those were agreed to between the town and the county. The effective date of January 1st, 2022 is also agreed upon. Compensation for the loss of municipal property tax revenue that would go to Mountain View County was agreed upon between the two parties. So that would include municipal property tax of $65,801.95 for a 5-year period based on the 2020 taxes, as well as 2 years of collected education tax that would essentially be a flow through to the province. In addition, the town and county did agree to the tax arrangement for the affected landowners, so landowners within the annexation area. And that is a 20-year tax arrangement where they would be assessed as they were still within the county and would receive the lower tax rate of either the town or the county for those 20 years, unless they were to subdivide, further develop, or establish a new connection to town services. And the last two items that were agreed to were the maintenance of the 2 portions of Range Road that are also included in the annexation area. So the portion of Range Road 14, which is on the west side, the town will assume maintenance of that road immediately following annexation. For the portion of Range Road 13 on the east side, the county will continue maintaining that portion of road for a 5-year period after annexation. So those were the matters that were agreed upon. There were no matters that the town and county did not agree upon. So the annexation report will be submitted to the municipal government board, and that will form the town's official annexation application. And that includes the town's timing for the annexation, as well as any conditions that would be added to the final decision that would address the municipal taxation for the landowners, as well as the tax revenue that would go to the county as part of that. So the negotiation report was reviewed by the Intermunicipal Collaboration Committee at their March 4th meeting. And they did reach consensus on the content, and that they recommended that it go to both councils for approval. Mountain View County did pass a resolution to approve the annexation report at their March 10th meeting. So that has happened already. So now we require a similar resolution by the Town of Old Council to approve the report, so it can then be sent to the MGP as the annexation application. So once the MGP receives the town's application, they will determine if a public hearing is required. And if that's necessary, they will arrange to hold that public hearing. This is an uncontested application at this point, so all of the private landowners within the annexation area have agreed to the application. So we don't have an indication at this point if the MGP will require a public hearing. In addition, there's no time limit for the MGP to make a decision on the application. So the final decision does come from provincial cabinet in the form of an order in council. We're estimating that it may take 6 months to receive that formal decision from the province. So this afternoon from council, there is a resolution attached, Schedule A, that will approve the annexation negotiation report. And then we do require authorization to submit that report to MGP as a formal application. And that is the summary of my presentation.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Ms. Wright. I would like to open the floor for a motion regarding the annexation report. Councillor Harper.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. I so move that council approve the annexation negotiation report dated February 17th, 2021, and that we pass. Do you want two motions or one?
There will be two, but pass the resolution is the first one, I believe, and then
By passing the resolution in attached Schedule A. So that's my first motion then.
very good. And at this point in time, I would like to, on behalf of Chairperson Harper at our ICC committee, thank all of our staff and CPS, Natasha and Craig. You have done yeoman's work on this particular issue. It's a phenomenal report in my estimation, and we had wholehearted buy-in, and also the thanks goes to Mountain View County for their work and consideration in this. This was like CAO stated at the beginning, it was several years worth of work that is culmination in this particular report, and we would like to thank everybody who has had a hand in putting it together. It was a monumental task, and it's happy to see it going off to the Alberta government. Any questions, comments, concerns for Ms. Wright or regarding that motion? Seeing none, I will call for the vote. All in favor? And opposed? Motion is carried. All right, may I have the second motion on our RFD? Councillor Blatz.
Thank you, Your Worship. I move that Council authorize the submission of the Annexation Negotiation Report to the Municipal Government Board as the town's formal annexation application.
Thank you so much. Questions, comments, concerns regarding this issue? Yes, Councillor Overwater, then Harper.
Just a comment. Thank you, Worship. Yeah, just for the public that's here. I mean, there's been many hours that we have held discussions, and it has taken us a long process to get here, but we finally are here. So I think that's why, there isn't a whole lot of comments right now, if anybody's wondering, because we have had many comments before getting to this point. So just wanted to make that statement. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you, Councillor Overwater. Councillor Harper.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. I'd also like to commend Natasha and Craig of Parkland Community Planning and our administration, as well as the administration of Mountain View County and county councillors for all of this hard work. And I'd like to also state that the affected landowners were very cooperative in this annexation request, and they reviewed the documents quite thoroughly and made comments to Parkland Community Planning in reference to it. So I think it was a very lengthy but well worth the process for community engagement.
Yes. This will set the town of Olds up for the next 40, maybe 50 years as far as industrial and commercial land goes, and just absolutely a wonderful accomplishment. Thank you, everybody who had a hand in it. All right, unless there's any other comments, questions, concerns, I'll call the vote on the motion. All in favor? And opposed? All right, that motion carries. Thank you very much. Let's move along to item 3B, Emergency Management Agency, CAO.
Thank you, Your Worship, and we are going to give another update in regards to the status, the COVID update, and I believe Jennifer Lutz is here to do the presentation. I don't see Brian Powell with us today. So Jennifer has been the key individual in getting us to where we're at with the pandemic response and our recovery plan. So with that, I'll ask Jennifer to do her presentation.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Yep.
Sorry, I'm getting a new computer, so hopefully we'll lose my muffled computer, but let me know if you can't hear. So since our last meeting, Numbers have stayed relatively the same. We were up 4 since our last meeting with 10 enrolled. And since the slide was made, the county is at 12, so down 11 since our last report. Basically, numbers are kind of plateaued, and we're watching those hospital ICU rates quite closely, as those are what the step changes rely on. Hospitalization numbers and numbers not increasing. We're expecting some announcements today from the province, and we're making plans on every change to public health restrictions. So waiting for the restrictions to list and having plans in place so we're ready when they do. Next slide, Sean. We're working on a few objectives. As you know, the emergency management team is looking after coordinating this now, but we're still tracking objectives. So Larry Wright's leading the recovery focus, doing communication with businesses on recovery. We had an all-staff meeting last week. Big focus of it was employee appreciation. And a bit of a year in review. It's been a year since we initiated the ICP. We really wanted to showcase how everybody's contributed and supported the town and each other in this last year. I'd say it's quite fair to say our leadership, our employees, everybody's experiencing some level of COVID fatigue, and it's definitely been a marathon. So that look back was just capturing all the great stuff that has happened in spite of it. Pandemic and the great work that's been done. We had a recovery objective on employee engagement, and we sent out the second survey. The first one happened in October, so we can compare some data and see what our employees think and where improvements can be made within the emergency operating centers, but also in general. And then just ongoing communication. We did a major overhaul of the Corona page on the website and just trying to keep messaging out there on new things that are happening in the community. Last week it was the local pharmacies doing vaccinations, so we wanted to make sure people were aware the Sunshine Bus was available and that opportunity was open for people. And yeah, we're still as we were March 8th. So we'll update more once we know more. We still have the working from home restriction in place, and we're all doing our best to make that work. And again, the indoor social gathering restriction of 10 limits us a lot for council meetings and other meetings because of the size of our group. So with that, I think that is all. Oh, sorry, Michael wanted me to add this last one in. We gave you a review of the emergency management program a couple weeks ago. That was our last checkbox for our audit that occurred, and we passed our audit and we're meeting all the legislative requirements or exceeding them. So that is concluded and we will be good for another year.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Mrs. Lutz. And once again, congratulations on the finalization of the audit, and look like strong kudos under the Alberta government yet again. You and your team have done fantastic work throughout the pandemic, and it's very much appreciated, I'm sure. May I have a motion to accept? Councillor Thompson.
Mr. Mayor, I think you said Councillor Thompson, but your voice wasn't coming clear through the.
My apologies, Councillor Thompson, for the motion.
Yes, Your Worship. I move that Council request the emergency management presentation on COVID-19 as information.
Okay. Accept or request?
Sorry, I move that we accept.
Okay, there we go. Perfect. All right. Comments, questions, concerns regarding the presentation? Seeing none, I'll call for the votes. All in favor? And opposed? That motion carries. Thank you very much, Mrs. Lutz, and have a great week, and we'll see you soon. All right, let's move along to item 3C, Lions Pickup Garbage Day, CAO.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm just going to remind you that your voice isn't coming through loud and clear, so I think you may have to make an adjustment upward, just to let you know. I'm getting most of it, but there's a few words that are being left out. So with that, we'll ask Director Wagstaff to speak to the following item in regards to the Lions Club and our annual pickup day and our other activities. So with that, Director Wagstaff, and your very easy to see beard.
And I'm going to refer to Catherine Doyle, community facilitator. She introduces that she has worked with the Lions Club with the Pug Day. So Catherine Doyle, if you can please join us.
Hello, I'm here. We have Henry with the Olds Lions Club here to speak to the pug request and what's happening with the cleanup day activities this year. Henry, if you're here, if you'd like to go ahead.
Yes, somebody wave if my voice is coming through. Thank you very much, Your Worship and members of Town Council. Good afternoon, and thanks for this opportunity to share with you some of the details we've already worked out. I'm going to read from some notes to make sure that we keep within a time line. First of all, let me say that our club's major focus is to support our community, but in doing that, we also like to fulfill 5 major causes of Lions International, and one of them is to be keepers of our environment. And in doing so, we're pleased to say that we have a partnership with the town, and we've planted trees, and we benefit by having a memorial forest in our community. But we also would like to support environmental issues by our annual Pug Day or Pickup Garbage Day. Despite COVID, our club has voted to go ahead with this project, feeling that if we do not, it may die if we cancel yet a second year. We've chosen Friday, May the 14th as Pug Day, Pickup Garbage Day, and consultation with Catherine, who I would like to add is a great person to work with. She's very supportive and gives us a lot of initiative or information when we require it. She tells us that the town annual cleanup week is the week of May 14th. So we are going to choose that Friday so we can cooperate with the town initiative. 4 schools have already committed to help us. I wondered what would be the case there. And we expect the final 2 to join. I suspect that they're having staff meetings and want to collaborate as a staff. So I'm expecting 2 more, and all the schools in that case to be part of this initiative. The Legion has also been contacted, and they have agreed to be the center for pickup of garbage bags and gloves. With COVID being an issue, it's important that we have a central location and a partner that in the past has worked with us in this initiative, and they have very graciously agreed to continue that in that role. I've contacted CP Rail and I've contacted the Chamber of Commerce. I suspect the Chamber probably has to meet to discuss Pug Day. And unfortunately, I've not yet received a reply from CP Rail, but I'm hopeful. No reply, at least is not a negative reply at this point in time. We have certain funds that we committed, and with those funds, we support each school's participation by having a tablet drawn and presented to a member of each school. We have cards that we print and pay for in order to have such a draw within the school. And of course, we have some advertising and initiative or information that we share in the newspaper. So our club has agreed to pay $1,000 towards this particular project, and we're requesting that the town, as it has in the past, match this amount with a grant of $1,000. Our long-term goal is to, sorry, I've already read that part. Our long-term goal is to engage the entire community of Olds to keep our community clean and attractive. And I wouldn't want to suggest that we're an eyesore, we're not, but I think we can always do a little better. In the interest of public safety, while COVID lives among us, we're not going to promote a community-wide garage sale this year. Perhaps there will be an opportunity later in the summer or in the fall for such a town event to occur. But I think we want to present ourselves and present the town as keepers of safety within this COVID environment. So we're not going to participate in that part of Pug Day at this time. I invite any questions or comments that you may have.
Excellent. Thank you so much for your presentation, and the town appreciates your continued support in these initiatives and all the things that that you do. I would entertain a motion to start, and Councillor Blatz.
Thank you, Your Worship. I move that council thanks the Olds Lions Club and receive this presentation for information. Are these two separate ones?
Yes, please. So let's do that one first. And if there's any questions regarding the presentation or Pug Day or any of those sorts, we can ask them. Seeing none, I'll call for the vote on that motion. All in favor? And opposed? All right, that motion carries. May I have the second motion on our RFD? Councillor Overwater.
Thank you, Worship. Yes, I move that council directs administration to work with the Olds Lions Club to coordinate a community garbage cleanup project within the month of May 2021, and funding in the amount of $1,000 be approved in support of this initiative.
How is my microphone working, everybody? Is that a little bit better?
Better, yeah.
Better.
I'll try and speak a little more clearly. All right, questions, comments, concerns on that motion? Seeing none, we'll call for the vote. All in favor? And opposed? Fantastic. That motion carries as well. CAO.
I just want to thank Henry and the Lions Club for bringing back Pug Day and having this happen again. He's right. It's great to see. We have a very beautiful town, and this only makes us more beautiful as a community. And also, last year we delayed our cleanup week. It's now going to be back to a more normal setting. So it'll be earlier in the spring when people are trying to spring clean and get some of their things out of their garage and such. So I think that's great to see. And we will do it with all the cautions, as Henry indicated, that with COVID in mind. We want to have a healthy and safe community as well as a clean community. So just a few comments to be made. And I do want to thank Catherine for all her work behind the scenes from the administration point of view.
Excellent. Thank you very much, everybody. All right, let's move along. We're on to number 4, business arising out of minutes or unfinished business. Councillor Ryan.
Thank you, Your Worship. I just have an item under, number is it, from page 6, or sorry, page 5, under 5B. And that was with regards to the cost of a license for the proposed urban chickens, saying that it was going to come to council in September through the rates bylaw. But after I was thinking about that and seeing it in print, I'm thinking that seems a little bit weird to me, because if we have people who want to get a license this spring, what are we going to charge? So I think we need to have something come to us a little bit before September rates bylaw, and we can make a small amendment to the rates bylaw at any time, I'm sure. And so I would like to bring this forward from at the time when we talk about the urban chicken bylaw and have our public hearing for that.
Yeah.
My understanding is we weren't going to charge in 2021. We would see if this bylaw would be passed, and then we would create a rate for 2022 will be passed in the rates bylaw, but I could be corrected for that.
Yes, Director Wagstaff.
To affirm the CAO, that was our implementation that we took when we introduced the CATS licensing, was in the remainder of the year that we introduced it. It was at no charge. And then the following September, we had the rates bylaw come in that set the rate for the following year.
Okay. Councillor Harper and then Ryan.
Thank you very much, Your Worship, through you to our CAO or Director Wagstaff. I just want assurances that people will still have to make application for a permit, even though there might not be a charge for it for this 2021 year.
Councillor Harper, that is correct. There will still be the necessary process to follow, and you'll still need to get a license. You just will not be charged in 2021 for the license.
Thank you very much.
All right. Does that answer your question as well, Councillor Ryan?
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. I did have a similar question, but I also was not on council when the CAT licensing bylaw was discussed, and so I was not aware that there was no charge for it at that time. So thank you for clearing that up. I like the clarity, and thank you.
All right, so that's, is there any other unfinished business or business arising out of the minutes? Seeing no more, we'll move along to bylaws. Bylaw 5A. It's regarding murals. CAO, would you like to introduce before we get into the public hearing, or should we go straight? You're on mute, sir.
Just a couple of words. Again, we had a major consultation on this bylaw before we ever introduced anything. We had quite a good response from our public. And in February, we brought this forth in the PMP and in the subsequent council meeting and to get first reading. So now we're here today to have the public hearing and hear from our public and residents in regards to what's being brought forth, and hopefully we'll get a approval, second and third reading today, or we'll have some amendments.
Excellent. Thank you, CAO. So just a bit of housekeeping. Section 172 of the MGA states that you may not take part in the discussion and decision-making on any matter in which you have a pecuniary interest. The legislation attempts to ensure that you are not discriminated neither for or against by virtue of your member on council. If you have a pecuniary interest, you are to disclose that you have an interest and its general nature. You are to abstain from any discussion on the matter and from voting, and you should leave the room until the matter has been dealt with, and you should make sure that your absentation is recorded in the minutes. You are not to be discriminated against and are entitled to participate in the public hearing as a member of the public. So at this time, are there any pecuniary interests? Seeing none, I hereby call the public hearing for bylaw 2021-1 to order. Would the planning department like to make a presentation?
Thank you, Your Worship. I'll be presenting on behalf of the planning department. I'm not sure if we can share screens and bring up the actual bylaw that's the subject of the public hearing.
We'll get Mr. Fox to facilitate that for you.
Thank you very much. So if you can just scroll down to the body of the bylaw, Sean, Your Worship, this bylaw that we're presenting, bylaw 2021-01, speaks to murals on private and public buildings, where we're talking about the exterior of buildings that are visible from the public as opposed to interior spaces. So that's why it's a subject of the land use bylaw and the requirement for a development permit. Bylaw 2021-01 does three main things, and we're just going to quickly walk through the structure. The first sections 1 through 5, so 1 to 4 on the first page, and then number 5, look at the issue of definitions and making sure that if we want to regulate murals separately from signs or other activities, we have to have a nice clear definition. So that does have to be inserted into the land use bylaw to make sure that it's a clear separation from signs, and to also remove an older definition of super graphics that we're no longer using. The proposed definition for a mural, you can see it under number 1 on the screen, means a picture, scene, graphic, or diagram displayed on the exterior wall or surface of a building for the primary purpose of decoration or artistic expression, and not created to solely display a commercial message or depiction. That commercial message will be left to the signage. We can scroll down to the second page, please, Sean. So items number 6 and 7 deal with the second part of the overall bylaw, and this is a question of having decided where that we're going to regulate murals, where we'd like to see them within the community. And this is based on the community survey that was undertaken earlier, actually late last year. And the first list that you see under number 6 are largely the industrial and commercial and public recreational areas that are within the town's bylaw. So the downtown area, the highway commercial areas, the industrial parks, and most of our school sites are major recreation facilities, and a couple direct control districts that are largely commercial in nature. By and large, the murals are being kept out of residential areas, but item number 7 has a couple exceptions. They list a series of residential areas where we may have a large institutional building, such as a place of worship, a community hall, or a town-owned sports facility that's not a residential building per se, and in those circumstances, a mural may be considered. In all of those cases, whether or not you're on item number 6 or number 7, it's being proposed to insert murals as a discretionary use. So what the discretionary use means is the development authority has a latitude in terms of the types of conditions that could be attached, and the development authority for these particular decisions would be Municipal Planning Commission as opposed to the development officer. Number 8, and if we can scroll down a little bit, gets into the meat of the bylaw. Having defined it murals separately, we're introducing Schedule D1 about murals, similar right after the sign section. To provide more specifics about the process, we expect these kind of development permits to go through. And if you're planning and designing a mural, what are the community's broad general expectations, do's and don'ts for that design? We don't, it's very broad in general, it's not very specific to themes. So first up, in terms of process, the development officer would receive applications, and we have identified a few things that are somewhat unique to murals, such as a write-up or a drawing of your proposed mural and a artist written statement of the concept, message, or theme that it's meant to be conveyed on that drawing. We've also built in a role for the Public Art Advisory Committee, a town committee, to help the development authority in evaluating the contents and the artistic characteristics of a particular mural. So that's been built into the process, and that an applicant would be expected to touch base with the committee or start with the development officer. In either way, once they submitted their application, it's not complete until we get some written confirmation back from the committee on how it stacks up against the town's expectations laid out in the land use bylaw amendment that's before council. There is, if we could scroll down a little bit, please, Sean. There is a timeline expectation for the Public Arts Advisory Committee to undertake their role. So there's at least a 30-day window there from the time the development officer provides them, most likely the drawing and the written statement of the artist concept, to meet, confer, and provide some written feedback back to the development authority. From there, a report would go off to Municipal Planning Commission so they too have the advantage of the Public Arts Advisory Committee's input into the process. Section 3, you see start coming up on the screen and going on to the next stage, lays out some general provisions of what's expected when you're planning a mural. So that includes things like not covering up a bunch of architectural features like a bay of windows with your mural. It includes things like not having a commercial message. It includes kind of a soft standard of starting with one, but the development authority can approve more than one mural on a single building. It does include a statement that the mural content may be required to be reflective of the town's history and heritage, and I'll come back and speak to that one in a little bit more detail. Number 7 and 8 in particular start getting a little bit of guidance on what could be contained in a mural, but also leaving it open for a broad range of artistic expression. The general gist of section number 7 is if it's going to be divisive or offensive to members of the community, perhaps that mural should not go ahead. Number 8 is to encourage, though not require, strictly speaking. So people are encouraged to bring in something that has a link to heritage, but it doesn't always have to. And then number 9 and 10 speak to maintenance and upkeep of the mural. So if there's lighting, we expect to see how that's going to be undertaken. If a mural fades or gets a little worn and torn, or structural elements seem to be failing over time. There's an expectation that whoever commissioned or allowed the mural to be on their building bears responsibility for the upkeep and making sure that the mural still looks good and that it remains safe on the building. With that, so that's it for the body of the bylaw, Your Worship. If we could go jump back to the RFD, please, Sean. And we'll go through that's good. Public input, please. If you can scroll. So, Your Worship, the bylaw was advertised and we received definitely comments from the Public Art Advisory Committee, and I'll go through their comments in a second. We also received some correspondence. It's in your agenda package at the very back. That's a letter that touched on two topics, one of which was this particular bylaw. We'll touch on that as well. So the Public Arts Advisory Committee had a series of 3 comments. The first 2 I put together, and they speak to the relationship between the statement that says the Development Authority may require a bylaw, a mural to have a heritage link, and then section 8, which talks about you're encouraged to do it. So it may seem on the surface to be an overlap, but those 2 clauses do very different jobs. Number 8 is the encouragement to let people know what would be deemed acceptable or guide people down that particular path. And section 5, where the development officer may require as a condition that the content be changed, has to be structured that way in the eventual the event that the development authority feels that on that particular circumstance, that particular building or setting, whatever it is, that there should be a heritage link. So we need to make sure that the bylaw has the ability to attach those kind of conditions, or it's something that the development authority will not be able to do. When they use it remains a question. Can we scroll down a little bit to the next page, please, Sean? So the third comment was dealing with a couple points that are in the bullet list that was in section 7. And it talks about religious viewpoints and content, for example. And the PAC has recommended removing the words or content because that may be a little bit too restrictive, and sticking with the viewpoint component. I think it's religious and then political. And from planning staff's perspective, we don't have any concerns over the overall content and structure of the bylaw, its ability to do the job by removing those words. In terms of the letter that's at the very back, the page, the package, Your Worship, maybe we could just jump to that, Scott. I believe it's the second from last page, in so 394. Okay, well, up one, please. Oh, no, wait, sorry, that's right, bang right on. So it's the third paragraph that I would bring your attention to, members of council, that's related to this particular topic. So this individual has indicated that she, generally speaking, is happy with other things she sees happening in town, but is concerned about the murals in terms of a reference to any nude paintings, whether or not that would be considered acceptable content, and not really too keen on that happening. And also having a series of questions in terms of who pays for murals, does it involve the use of tax dollars, do Olds residents have a say in what kind of murals are allowed, how many may be there, and who will maintain and pay for them. So just a brief answer on some of those questions is tax dollars don't have to go in the murals. These are by and large private developments on private property. Although if it was on a town-owned building, the development permit, same rules would apply. And in that particular case, that would be a, if approved by council, a public expenditure. In terms of the maintenance, the private building owner who agreed to have it on their building ultimately bears responsibility for not only paying and commissioning and having the work done, but also the long-term cost for that. The bylaw does not set a ration or a number of murals across any particular area. So that is pretty much every building down a block could, if they meet the requirements, apply and have a mural. There's no specific limit on that, although I don't expect that intensity of murals to be coming to downtown or the town of Olds anytime soon. So with that, Sean, if we could jump back up to the RFD, Your Worship, I do have one recommended amendment to the bylaw before recommending second and third reading. And at the top of the RFD, please, Sean. And that is to amend bylaw 2021-01 in the schedule that's attached by removing the words or content in Schedule D, mural section 3.0, bracket 7, bracket E, and section 3.0, bracket 7, bracket F. And if council agrees to that amendment, Your Worship, I would then recommend that bylaw 2021-01 be given second and third reading as amended.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Mr. Teal, for your continued support and all the work that you and Ms. Wright have done on this particular issue as well. Now, just question to the legislative clerk. Do we have anybody in the queue to speak? And do we need to go through the formalities of that within this public hearing, or is this all of the commentary we have today?
Hi, it's Marcy. Can you hear me?
Yep.
I provided an email to Director Chant and to Mr. Teal that I've received no apologies. I received one request. However, there was a conflict and she provided no further comments.
All right, well, then I will go through the formality very, very quickly here then, if there's nobody in queue to speak. So presentations before council shall be brief and to the point and limited to 5 minutes. Council shall not be allowed to cross-examination of persons giving information, and it will not be necessary for persons giving information to verify his or her qualifications. Council may ask questions of the speaker after each presentation for clarity purposes. No debating or questions from the floor will be allowed, and no written or verbal submissions will be received by council after the public hearing is closed. Persons addressing council will state their name and address and indicate whether they're speaking on their own behalf, for a client, a company, or a citizens group. I would now like to make the first call for all of those in support of the proposed bylaw to make a presentation. And hearing that there are none, I'll make the second call for those in support of the proposed bylaw. And hearing there are none, I will make the first call on all of those opposed to the proposed bylaw to make a presentation. Hearing none, I will now make the second call for all those opposed. Hearing none, I will now make the first call for all those persons deemed to be affected by the proposed bylaw to make a presentation. Hearing none, I'll make the second call for those persons deemed affected. And now, at this point in time, I will ask if council has any comments, concerns regarding this particular bylaw. Councillor Overwater.
Thank you, Your Worship. Now, I know Mr. Teal touched on this, but I'm not sure if he finished it. On page 227, 8, where it states murals shall be encouraged but not required to have a linkage to. The Public Art Advisory Committee felt that we should just remove basically everything and just have 8A as murals shall be encouraged but not required to have a linkage to historical events and or local culture, and remove everything else that was in there.
Okay. Anybody, Mr. Teal, any objections with that particular proposal?
Your Worship, that is a change that I did not recommend in terms of retaining some sort of guidance to those that are trying to plan a mural and being able to look at a list and say those kind of things would be deemed acceptable versus number 7, which is a list of things that are deemed unacceptable.
Well, just to comment back to that, I guess the Public Art Advisory felt that possibly was very restrictive and sort of indicated to the people that wanted to put murals up were that we were sort of making more of a heavily suggestion that A through D be the suggestion versus just historical events and or local culture. We felt that covered it all within there. You know, I mean, residents, I mean, who have helped build the community, again, that's historical events. Representatives, landscapes, and physical environments. I mean, that can be, you know, the local culture, that could be included in that part. Possibly Mr. Wagstaff or Councillor Harper want to interject in this, as they were part of, or Michelle as well, Jorgensen. We had quite a fulsome discussion on number 8. So we felt that just that one statement covered it quite openly. and with the Development Authority asking whoever wants to put a mural forward that they do come to the Public Art Advisory so that they can get some guidance, so that they're not sort of back and forth with us and with the Development Authority. Then, you know, we could help them with this part, and then it makes it a easier process for whoever wants to do a mural. So I would like to hear what those other three people have to say. Councillor Harper, Director Wagstaff, and Michelle Jorgensen, our Heritage Advisor.
Go to Councillor Harper.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. Yes, I have to say that the Public Art Advisory Committee was concerned about having all those extra items in it. Shall be encouraged to have the linkage to the way it reads right now. And I can understand where Mr. Teal and the Development Authority has indicated that we should leave them in. But I believe that having the wording, murals shall be encouraged but not required to have a linkage to the historical and or local culture, would be enough for us to allow some creative artistic endeavors to happen, where we could have street arts, items like that, which can be very attractive, pop art in there. And if we keep those items A to E in that criteria, I think we would be limiting, as the Public Art Advisory Committee indicated too, limiting in the artistic endeavors.
And
yes, Councillor Bowana.
yeah, and you know, I would like to say, I mean, yes, certainly there is Councillor Harper and myself on there that really have, well, I won't speak for Councillor Harper, but we don't have a whole lot of artistic ability in our bones. But you know, we do have 5 or 6 other public members that are very diverse in the different art mediums that they do. And they found it to be quite restrictive, quite a few of those A to D. So we just made it historical events and local culture, encouraged but not required. They felt then, as Councillor Harper said, you know, it will open the doors to some very creative artwork that we possibly could have in our community.
Excellent. Councillor Blatz.
Thank you, Your Worship. I don't know if maybe perhaps Director Wagstaff or perhaps Michelle Jorgensen would like to go ahead, but I do have one comment in regards to the comments made by Councillor Overwater and Councillor Harper. And so if they want to speak first, I'll let them speak, but otherwise I would make my comment.
You know, look to the legislative clerk here. Should this be a debate for second reading as opposed to in the public hearing? Should we close off the public hearing and go to debate on second reading? Legislative clerk.
Hi, it's Marcy. I would probably have to defer that to maybe Craig to confirm. I think that the council discussion and getting consensus so that a motion can be made for an amendment after the public hearing is probably the better, like a better way to go. Is if you have consensus, then you make the motion when the public hearing is over with the other amendments.
Okay. No, we can continue on in this forum. I just didn't know if we were doing it in a proper manner. Sorry to cut you off, Councillor Blatz.
That's fine. That's fine. I'll just make my comment then. As far as, you know, perhaps removing B and maybe C, or no, B would be fine, or D. But I like the representative landscapes and physical environments, because we've had some very good, take for example, the mural that the high school did for the Rotary Park. You know, that was a very good one. And I don't find that restrictive. I think that gives guidance more than anything. So I don't mind leaving that item C in there. And if everybody else felt it was restrictive, well, I don't know, to me, this is just a guidance. It's not telling people yay or nay. That's my take on it. So I don't know, maybe other councillors would like to speak up, but that's just my opinion.
Personally, I'd like to see the mural shall be encouraged to have a linkage to, but not limited to.
Yeah.
Perhaps wording along those lines. Councillor Bennett, then Thompson.
And then Councillor Ryan.
Sorry, Councillor Ryan, then Bennett, Ryan, Thompson.
What is that noise that I keep hearing?
I don't know.
It's
Hi,
very.
it's Mercy. Hi, it's Mercy.
Yes.
Mr. Fox just confirmed that we believe it's the mayor because of his sensitivity. He turned up on his microphone so he could be better heard, maybe causing the static right now.
Okay.
I can't hear anything.
It is quite annoying.
Okay,
Annoying.
let me turn it back down and see if it's.
Working right now.
Perhaps you could just mute yourself
Yeah, hold on.
in between your speaking.
Is that better?
Yes.
We don't know.
Is it a little bit better? Can you still hear me though?
Yes, and
Yes.
yes.
Yep.
Okay, and then the feedback's gone or the noise is gone?
Yes.
Okay, I will mute myself in between from now on.
Who's speaking?
Councillor Bennett.
Councillor Bennett, you have a question or was that just your?
I was going to say that Councillor Thompson was before me.
Okay, Councillor Thompson, then Ryan. Or
Thank you, Your Worship. I would just suggest that I support the amendment that Councillor Marianne Overwater and Councillor Harper are proposing. I would like these murals to be less restrictive, and I think this will encourage further art in the community. So I support the suggestion that that was brought forward.
Councillor Bennett.
I just would like to ask Craig again, the need to have the clarification. Is there another way that this can be worded without seeming to be a heavy-handed approach?
Mr. Teal.
Thank you, Your Worship. So I think in particular, in terms of Section 8 and Section 5, there is that relationship. One of them is intended, if the Development Authority feels necessary, to be able to apply a condition. So if there is a building that must have a heritage-related mural theme, if we don't have that in there, then that condition cannot be applied to a future mural. It's not to say that the Development Authority will or won't use it, but the bylaw has been structured for them to be able to do that in that event. Section 8 encourages a series of linkages. It's not mandatory. So we do have to watch some of the changes that are proposing to go with encouraged but not required. So I think that's to encourage, yes, that was a wording proposed, would have a direct clash with clause number 5. So,
And I'm in agreement with Mr. Teal that nothing here is mandated by saying will. It's encouraged to have a linkage and they may require. So I still think that it provides guidance. And that's my opinion.
Okay. Councillor Ryan, then Overwater.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm concurring with Councillor Bennett and Councillor Blatz. It says encouraged. This is a guideline. It's not saying to people, but you have to have. It's saying it's encouraged. It's not required. This gives people a bit of a guideline as to what they could put into a mural. It gets people thinking. I don't think it's restrictive. I think having 5 things listed here, you could have 20 things listed here as far as I'm concerned. And it allows people to think. I don't think you're restricting people in their thinking. You're just giving them opportunity to explore different avenues of just, if you ask me, by having historic events or local culture would restrict it to those 2 things. So I think this is just a guideline. I don't think we need to say you have to have it. It says encouraged, and I think we could add the words but not required. I do want to point out one change though that we should make, and it's very minor and not a big deal, is on their 3.0, we have 2 4s, 2 4 points and not a 3. So one of them needs to be changed.
There you go. All right, so I have
Sorry, and by the way, I'm not against murals whatsoever. I'm totally I support beautiful art in this town. I think all of council does. But I just think that this is we're not trying to restrict, we're just trying to provide some encouragement.
Excellent. Councillor Overwater, then Thompson.
Thank you, Worship. Well, number one, I don't think we need to give artists any ideas about what to paint. I think they have many ideas themselves, and they come up with ideas all on their own without us giving them ideas. I do believe I would like to hear from Doug Wagstaff and Michelle Jorgensen, because they were there for this very heavily discussed topic that we had. And when we listened to the artists, it was quite apparent that they felt that some of those statements in there, and I know we're deciding whether to change it, murals shall be encouraged but not required. But they just felt that there was an underlying tone there as to what council was thinking should be in there. And going through our survey, it was very apparent that all the comments in the survey was, number one, why is there even 2 councillors on there? And, you know, like I say, we do have 5 or 6 other public at large artists that really don't need any ideas to come up with art. I think they're very open to whatever they want to paint or draw or construct or whatever. But I would like to hear from Michelle and Doug. I haven't heard from them yet.
All right, let's go to Director Wagstaff and then Michelle, and then we'll go to Councillor Thompson, Harper, and then Bennett.
So I don't think there would be much for us to add. Both Councillors Overwater and Harper have articulated well the opinion that the Public Arts Advisory Committee had forwarded. And it was articulating that there is a difference between the perspective of artists and the tone and need of a legislative framework that's in a bylaw. So it is a slight conflict that we're trying to balance there in finding the language that will give us a strong enough legislative authority to enforce something if we need to, and at the same time encourage artistic creativity that might be a little bit, thinking beyond only what we foresee ourselves.
Okay, thank you. Michelle. Okay. I'm just trying to get Mrs. Jorgensen. Unless she's having some difficulties.
She's able to listen in. She is having issues with her mic.
Okay, all right.
Yes. And she has indicated that, similar to my comment, I'm just sorry, she texted me to say she's having mic issues. That, she agreed that both Councillors Overwater and Harper, captured the essence of what the Public Arts Advisory Committee was forwarding.
Thank you. All right, we'll go to Councillor Thompson, then Bennett, then Harper.
Thank you, Your Worship. My question is actually to Mr. Teal. If in section 8, if we changed the word shall to may, murals may be encouraged to have a linkage to, would that provide for the legislative requirement that would allow us to enforce in those few instances where it's needed, but still not be overly prescriptive and leave it more welcoming to artists versus overarchingly prescriptive?
Your Worship, so if I understand, it's subclause 8 would read murals may be encouraged to have a linkage to, and then the sublist.
But not required.
I think you do have to watch the issue of not required, Your Worship, because then that goes against subclause number 5. If you do come against this one case where you want it to have heritage, you have to have something for the development authority to hang a condition on. So I think the switch from shall encourage to may encourage does soften the language a little bit. And I'm assuming that that change would leave number 5 as is, so that when if you need to attach that condition, the development authority still has that ability.
Councillor Bennett.
I think Councillor Harper was before me.
Okay, sorry, Councillor Harper.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. And I do have to agree that members of the Public Art Advisory Committee initially felt that the bylaw was very restrictive and felt that artists would be confined. But after reading other bylaws from other major cities, they realized there's a reason why a bylaw has to be worded in such a way. So I would certainly agree with changing the wording on number 8 to say murals may be encouraged, because it may be encouraged then, and then keep the list. And then, so by adding the words may gives people an option to do that or not. So we don't need to add the words but not limited to. So by changing from shall to may provides a more flexibility, but still keeps 8 and 5 together. So it does give us that option as an authority, which we still have to have.
Councillor Bennett, then Blatz.
So I just would like to say I'm fine with amending shall to may, and I still believe Mr. Teal is providing a good guidance for us, and it's not confining artists. And may we all remember the traveling light of Calgary, Alberta, and the other things that have been put up that they have had nothing but issues with for years to come. So I'd rather have this so that we can make sure that we can deal with any issue that comes before, not after.
Excellent. Thank you, Councillor Bennett. Councillor Blatz.
Well, or I was going to just say murals are encouraged to have linkage to may or are. They're probably about the same difference, but I don't find it restrictive that way. And again, I don't find it terribly restrictive as it is. Just because I thought this was just a guideline, just to give guidance to everyone, including the planning department.
I would certainly give my support to changing shall to may as well. Anybody else before we move along? All right, seeing none, we'll finish up the public hearing portion of everything. Would the development officer care to make any final comments, Mr. Teal?
I know, Your Worship. However, I will help you out with the wording on some of the amendments as we go into second reading.
Please do. Thank you. All right. So at this point in time, I declare the public hearing for bylaw 2021-01 closed. My gavel there, apparently. So, all right. So let's move along and start with a motion for reading. Councillor Harper.
I move that we amend that bylaw 2021-01 to amend the land use bylaw be amended by removing the words or content in Schedule D1, mural section 3.07E and section 3.07F, and further that under 3.0 general provisions, section 8, to read murals may be encouraged to have a linkage to.
Excellent.
By removing the word shall.
Okay, and Mr. Teal.
Is that correct, Mr. Teal?
That'll do the job, Your Worship.
Excellent. All right, comments, questions, concerns regarding that motion. Councillor Ryan.
Thank you, Your Worship. Do we also need to include in this at this point with my amendment with regards to 3.0 to put in number 3 instead of 2 4s?
Yeah, we can add that in as well. Friendly amendment, Councillor Harper.
Yes.
And, just the housekeeping. Very good. Thank you for reminding us. And Mr. Teal, of course, you don't have an issue with that.
Sorry,
Sorry?
I couldn't quite hear your last bit there, Your Worship.
You have no issue with changing the 2 4s to a 3 and a 4?
I was going to throw that in as a technical change, Your Worship, but in a formal motion is okay too.
Excellent. All right. Any comments, questions, concerns regarding that motion? Seeing none, I'll call for a vote. All in favor? And opposed? All right, that motion carries. All right, let's move along to second reading. May I have a motion for second reading, please? Councillor Ryan.
Thank you, Your Worship. I move that bylaw 2021-01 as amended be given second reading.
Excellent. Comments, questions, concerns regarding the second reading? Seeing none, I'll call for a vote. All in favor? And opposed? And that motion carries as well. All right, let's move along to third reading. Councillor Bennett.
Thank you, Your Worship. I move that bylaw number 2021-01 as amended be given third reading.
Excellent. Comments, questions, concerns regarding third reading? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor? And opposed? And that motion is carried as well. All right, folks, thank you very much. That was one big piece of legislation, which our bylaw that was very well thought out. I'd like to thank all of our staff who had a hand in this. It was a long time coming, and I think a very well thought out process. And Mr. Teal and anybody else at PCPS that had a hand in that, we appreciate your work as well. All right, let's move along to new business. Item 6A, CAO.
Thank you, Your Worship. The 6A is a proclamation of Green Shirt Day. It's hard to believe it's almost 3 years ago that Canada, Saskatchewan, the world basically found out the tragedy of the Humboldt Broncos bus crash that killed 16 people and injured many more. Thankfully, some good did come out of this in the form of a movement, and Green Shirt Day kind of speaks to that. I'll ask Director Wagstaff to speak a bit more about this proclamation and the importance and its centering in, as it did have an impact on the town of Olds and our residents as well.
Director Wagstaff.
Yes, just to add to that, the local connection is that the Boulay family is originally from Olds, and as recently as this spring, over the winter, the passing of Logan Boulay's grandfather, who was a resident of our community here in Olds. A donation was made in his name, Roland Boulay, to the Rotary Athletic Park. So there is a local connection here to the family, and originally Olds Town Council, as well as Council of the City of Lethbridge, were two of the first municipalities to make a declaration for proclaiming Green Shirt Day, originally in its first year. And proposed today is to continue that support, both for the cause of organ donation, as well as for the Boulay family. So before you today is a proclamation for our community to continue moving this young man's memory forward in a good legacy, paying it forward, for many other lives across our country with regards to organ donation. So with that, we will be doing, if council approves the proclamation, we'll be doing another campaign promoting it. We've already put out one message just indicating that it is coming forward, but that we would do this to a greater extent if it's proclaimed in the town of Olds.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Director Wagstaff. May I start with a motion, please? Councillor Thompson.
Yes, Your Worship. I would move that Tuesday, April 7th, 2021 be proclaimed as Green Shirt Day in the town of Olds.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Comments, questions, concerns? All right, seeing none, I'll call for the vote. Oh, yes, Mr. Merritt.
Well, I just want to say the town council of the town of Olds, as well as the council of Lethbridge, did bring a motion to bring this, get some provincial attention too. So a resolution to the AUMA's annual convention. And I think that's important that this council showed leadership on that front as well.
Excellent. Thank you very much for reminding us, CAO. All right. Unless there's any further comments. Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor and opposed. Motion is carried. Excellent. Thank you very much. Let's continue on. Item 6B, public at large appointment. We do, as required under the MGA, need to go to a closed session of council to facilitate this particular item on our agenda. So I would, at this point in time, entertain a motion to go to a closed session under FOIP Section 17. Councillor Ryan.
Thank you, Your Worship. I move that we go into a closed session under FOIP Section 17 for the appointment to a Public Art Advisory Committee.
Excellent. Comments, questions, concerns regarding that motion? Seeing none, I will call for the vote. All in favor and opposed. And I do have a little spiel here for the public. So when we go into a closed session, there's 2 ways for the public to continue participation in our meeting today. First, you can click on the meeting button and leave the meeting. Then watch our Town of Olds website and Facebook page for a live update as to when council will return. Administration will post the time, and when we reconvene, you can reapply and rejoin the virtual meeting at that time. Or number 2, you can stay online on the virtual meeting platform, and our administration will move all meeting attendees into the waiting room while council has our closed session. And then once we come back to regular session, we will bring you back in at that point in time. At this point in time, I'd like to ask Mr. Fox to put everybody except for council, CAO, and do we need anybody else?
Well, the legislative clerk will remain, and Director Wagstaff perhaps, as he's tied to the committee, that the advisory committee.
Perfect. So Mr. Fox, if we could put everybody else into the waiting room.
So, Doug, did you dye your beard or is it that color?
All right, so I will call the meeting back to order. We do have a motion to take care of. Who would like to make that motion? Councillor Overwater.
Thank you, Worship. I move that Judy Douglas be appointed to the, pardon me, appointed to the Public Art Advisory for a term of 7 months to expire at the 2021 organizational meeting.
Excellent, thank you very much. Comments, questions, concerns? Sorry, everybody got mixed up and I'm trying to make sure I see all of council. Seeing none, I'll call for a vote. All in favor and opposed. And that motion is carried. Excellent. Thank you very much, everybody. And let's move along to Item 7, reports from council boards and committees. I see Councillor Overwater with her hand up, and I'll go through my fractured Zoom meeting schedule. So no rhyme.
Want a
or-
motion first?
Yes, please.
Okay. I move that the reports from council authorities, boards, committees, commissions ending March 22nd, 2021 be received for information. I did send out my report, but there are a few highlights that I would like to make note of. February 26th, I was on the Southern Alberta Energy from Waste Association meeting, and it was a little disappointing because we got turned down from a grant for emissions reduction in Alberta for $14 million, which was very disappointing, as the reduction in carbon emissions over its life would be 7 million metric tons. So I don't really know what the governments are doing. They want us to reduce emissions, yet, you know, we're trying our hardest with this project that would do that quite substantially, and it seems like we get turned down for that. February 27th, I was invited to judge the old 185 Air Cadet public speaking. It was amazing. These young people, their public speaking credentials that they have it was quite amazing. And then we had to come up with an impromptu topic for them to speak on. And so there was 3 of us that were judging. And so we came up with, what is your favorite fast food place and why? And this one fellow, I tell you, he went on with about potatoes forever. He ate them for breakfast, he ate them as snacks, and he ate them lunch, and he had every concoction for potatoes. It was quite amusing. Anyways, so that was very entertaining. Attended PNP council meeting, CAO conversation, attended the Zoom AGM for District Chamber of Commerce in Olds District Chamber of Commerce. And to me, they had a hard year, but they're going to try and increase their membership is, I think, one of their focal points. Mary Jane probably will maybe expand on that. Attended the broadband investment, attended RMA conference March 16th to the 17th. There's quite a bit of information in there. However, it was interesting, Minister Madu, when he spoke about the provincial police force, he did say that the overages in expenses for a private police force versus the RCMP would be picked up by the province. Well, I sort of laughed at that because we are the taxpayer for the province, so we're going to pay one way or another. Also, the government of Alberta is looking for partnerships for senior housing. We had Dr. Jody Carrington as a guest speaker. She was absolutely amazing. I think we all got some good tips out of her, and I'm hoping Mr. Merritt is working on getting her so that the next all staff meeting, maybe in the fall, and council can attend and listen to her, because she was very entertaining and very to the point on mental stress, dealing with COVID, and just how she reiterated some of her thoughts about that. TELUS, they're going to install high-speed internet by the end of December 2021 to approximately 5,680 households in Alberta, which is not a lot, but I guess it's a start. Jim Carr, Special Representative for the Prairies of Government of Canada. I think that's probably a new appointment. I don't think I've ever heard of that before. And he feels that high-speed internet is as essential as the rail and the Trans-Canada Highway. So who knows, maybe there will be some money coming somewhere. There were several resolutions that passed quite heavily, but there was one that I found interesting. It was on the RMA advocating for the government of Alberta in opposition of the creation of an Alberta Provincial Police Service to replace the RCMP. This was defeated because some of them wanted to hear what the report would come out with the internal police advisory report from the Alberta government with that. So they're waiting on that. Minister Nixon spoke on the Extended Producers Responsibility Program, which is packaging from producers and who's responsible to recycle it. So he said that framework is coming out in the fall. There are no new programs for expansions of new landfills. So in retrospect, that is a good thing for SAWA, Southern Alberta Energy from Waste organization. Premier Kennedy said that there was 50 million to modernize rural healthcare facilities, and Olds, I believe, Michael, correct me if I'm wrong, we get 1.1 million for extensive cleaning of certain things in the hospital.
Absolutely. Yes, that's correct.
And then I attended MPC. We approved a home occupation accounting business, lawn maintenance business, home occupation craft and apparel. Our development permits for February of 2020 were 169,000 versus February 2021 of 1.057 million. So that was encouraging that we are having some growth in our community on that. Attended the police advisory meeting, and we were kind of short on the numbers, but we still had quorum. We decided on our priorities for the committee were engagement with youth to work along with RCMP, COP, MME, and citizen education. 2 was visibility of the RCMP. We have some events planned, possibly to go out within the community and have coffee and cards and stuff like that to tell the community, or tell the citizens of the community what we're about, and maybe we'll have some RCMP with us along with us. Understanding the process of complaints was another priority for us, and of course there's much more in my report. However, and I do believe all of us on council did get a letter from MPC Commissioner Leon Muir. He thanked all of us for the work that we are doing on council, and just wanted to take the opportunity to thank all of us for that. So thank you.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Councillor Overwater. Councillor Thompson, you're next on my Zoom meeting list there.
Thank you, Your Worship. I attended some of the similar events that Councillor Overwater attended, and I've submitted a written report as well, so I won't duplicate too much. Of course, I participate on the Municipal Planning Commission. That's already been discussed. I participate with the Citizens on Patrol. That group hasn't met in some time, and I reached out to the chair in the last week and talked to him about their plans to move forward. And he assured me there would be a meeting forthcoming, and that members were just waiting for COVID concerns to lapse a little bit before they get members out mixing in cars and doing a little more patrols. From the RMA conference that I attended as well, one neat perspective for rural residents is that the 911 feature is being updated across the province, and in doing so, mobile users will see a new charge or an additional charge on their phone. It'll go from 44 cents per user to 95 cents per user. But over the next 2 years, rural citizens will be able to call 911, and they will be GPS located, which will assist with the safety of our rural residents across the province. The bear pit I found really interesting at the RMA conference. There were many ministers that were available, and topics on policing, of course, as mentioned, but also things like the coal extraction. The province is indicating that they will be doing extensive consultation, and that's very positive. We heard from a number of different ministers, the Premier himself, and it was very informative. Beyond that, I'm an alternate to the Olds Policing Advisory Committee, and I wasn't needed in the last month. And tomorrow I will be attending the first meeting of the Code of Conduct Ad Hoc Review Committee. So that's tomorrow. I attended all the usual meetings and the Chamber of Commerce as well. So I won't belabor things any further, Your Worship.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Councillor Thompson. Councillor Blatz, next on my screen.
Thank you, Worship. I do have a written report to be submitted. I just didn't get my self-organized this morning. I did attend the regular council meetings, PNP meetings, our broadband investment meetings, the chamber AGM, the AUMA budget webinar, which I mean is pretty much what we suspected it was going to be. I did attend a few of the Red Deer River Municipal Users Group meetings, a special committee meeting, and the regular and executive committee meetings. And I went on the virtual community town hall with the Olds College, where they provided an update on the composting center, and an FCSS advisory meeting, which there will be a report coming from one of our presentations at that meeting, I think at our next PNP meeting. And today is March 22nd, which is World Water Day. And I just got the notification that it was today. I had missed it somewhere along the way. Anyway, it just says water is the most critical resource issue of our lifetime and our children's lifetime. The health of our waters is the principal measure of how we live on the land. And anyway, so I think it's time we should recognize that as well. Thank you, and we'll move along to the next person.
Excellent. Thank you, Councillor Blatz. Councillor Harper.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. I, as well as other councillors, have attended all the regular meetings as well as PNP meetings. I'd like to highlight the Chamber annual meeting that took place last week. There were 4 new directors acclaimed to the board. Cassidy Kirsch, Carly Boom, Doug Rieberger, Mahat Megat, who is a new business owner in town, and Mark Johnson, who was appointed back to the board. We will be having our first meeting of the new board on Wednesday, where they will be electing a new executive. The board also presented a very lean budget for 2021 with, I think, very optimistic or pessimistic revenue as well as expenses for 2021, realizing that business community is still is suffering a lot. I also had the Water Commission meeting, and we received, reviewed and affirmed the water supply policy. And we have in the past 2 months actually passed the new bylaws for the Water Commission in reference to operations and governance that keep us in line with the new legislation in reference to commissions. At the Water Commission, we were informed that staff are preparing for the annual spring runoff. To date, the runoff has been actually very slow, but we expect probably in the next few weeks for that runoff to build up. And you'll probably notice the difference in the amount of chemical that's placed in your water supply. I also, I actually need to mention that the annual meeting of the Water Commission is April the 14th. I've passed on that information to my alternate Councillor Overwater as well as the mayor. Part of that annual meeting will be presentation of the audited financial statements. And of course, I've had a number of meetings in reference to ICC. So that's my report today. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Harper. Councillor Ryan.
Thank you, Your Worship. I have submitted a written report. Just give you a couple of highlights. One thing that Councillor Overwater didn't have in hers and I put in mine was we both attended the Innisfail Rural Crime Watch meeting. That last year at this time, Councillor Harper and I were able to attend it in person because it was before COVID. Actually, I think it was in February, so it was definitely before COVID. It had a great turnout of about 150, 200 people. The place was packed. This meeting had a very small group, but we had a lively discussion with regards to repeat offenders and what we can do going forward. They're going to invite the Crown Prosecutor from Red Deer to the next meeting to find out what possible things we can do in order to lobby with regards to that specific idea. The other thing was a restorative justice which is an alternative to jail time. Both Councillor Overwater and I have talked about this before at this particular item. And I think we will be providing more information, hopefully, to the Police Advisory Committee, or have discussions at the Police Advisory Committee going forward. The other thing I wanted to point out was on the library board, of course, we had our AGM. The numbers are there in my report, and I'm sure that you'll receive more information from the library manager, Leslie Sackett, on when she comes and presents to council. One thing I forgot to mention in my report, though, was we had voted on a date to reopen the library if we get to stage 3, which would be April 10th. There is supposed to be announcements happening later today. So we have our fingers crossed, but that would be the date that we would be looking at opening if we're allowed to. And I guess that's about it. I attended pretty much everything that everybody else has said for regular meetings, the Chamber of Commerce AGM. The other thing would be CEO Evaluation Committee. We've had a couple of meetings and we'll have another one this week. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, Councillor Ryan. Councillor Bennett.
Thank you, Your Worship. I too have attended many of the same meetings, all of the council meetings, policy and priorities, and the ICC meeting with Mountain View County. Also of note, I attended the previous month's Olds Institute meeting, and the OI annual general meeting is coming soon, and the directors want to encourage new people to apply to become a director. So if you know anyone who would be interested, please let us know. And as Olds Institute discusses back to our roots, it will be a great place to volunteer and basically have a reinvention. So we're all looking forward to that as well. And this week I have Olds Institute as well as Parkland Planning meeting. And that's everything. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, Councillor Bennett. I myself obviously attended many of the things aforementioned. I'd like to reach out and thank Claire Janetz, the chairperson of the Olds and Districts Chamber of Commerce, and thank her for all her work. I was honored to be asked to make a presentation at the AGM last week, and outlined a bit of what has gone on through the COVID crisis, and some hopefully good news to get us out and get some of the local businesses back on track and so forth. I did attend RMA, and I would like to also recognize Dr. Jody Carrington. She's a resident of the town of Olds, and I, after her presentation last week, spoke with a number of elected officials across Alberta, and picked up the telephone to phone me and congratulate the town of Olds that the fact that she lives and is centered here in the town of Olds. Her message was incredibly well timed and very, very inspiring. And I look forward to watching and hearing from her down the road. Also did attend the AUMA Economic Recovery and Resilience Task Force, and we have finally got our report ready to go. And the second it gets presented to the AUMA board, I have been assured I can release it to council and make it a part of our agenda package. So it was quite the Herculean task to get that together, and there was some great minds in that room, and we're very, very proud of the report that we've come up with. So we look forward, and hopefully the AUMA board sees fit to make this an ongoing committee, not just a task force. So we're asking for approval to do a continued standing committee. And that's about the end of my report for today. So we do have a motion on the table. If there's any comments, questions, concerns regarding that motion. Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor and opposed. Motion is carried. All right, let's move along to correspondence and information. CAO.
Thank you, Your Worship. There are 7 pieces of correspondence attached to your agenda for today. The first one is a letter from the Government of Alberta, Minister McIver, indicating there's changes to the disaster recovery program. We are going to develop a briefing note and a possible letter to return to Mr. McIver and point out a few items in regards to that once we have a chance to brief council on it. The main changes for municipalities are, in the past, there was 100% covered by the province and the federal government. Now the municipalities are expected to incur 10% of the cost of a disaster recovery program if there's a disaster that hits or an emergency that hits the community. As for individual homeowners, there's going to be a cap on the amount of money you can get for your home. I think it's $500,000. And that is to prevent people with larger homes to get a full compensation. It's meant to basically get you basic housing back again, so to speak. There's a few other changes in regards to it. That one is that if you are hit twice by a disaster, the second time, if your house is impacted by it, you are not going to be covered by that change. So there's some things to look into further on this program, but as I said, we'll be developing a briefing note and a potential response back to Minister McIver. The second is Minister McIver sent us a letter indicating that the first tranche of our STIP program, Strategic Transportation Infrastructure Program, is being sent to us. That's $1.5 million for the $3 million grant that we received, and that is for the 68th Street roundabout. Next item was already mentioned by Councillor Overwater. This is a letter from Mr. Muir to Councillor Platts, but I understand other councillors received this letter as well, thanking her for her service as a town councillor over the past 3.5 years. The next item is a response to our letter on coal policy consultation, and that was received on March 11th from the Minister of Energy. The next is a community event that'll be taking place, Hike for Hospice on May 2nd, 2021. It's a very important community event. This is going to be, again, because of COVID, a virtual event that'll take place. And it's encouraging our residents to get involved in this virtual event and raise money for this very important item the Olden District Hospice Society puts together. The next 2 pieces of correspondence was a correspondence and a reply to Judith Harder in regards to the art and murals, and that was already discussed in the previous agenda item that we had. So those are the items that came for correspondence, and I just want to speak to a comment by Councillor Overwater. We will be reaching out to Dr. Carrington to come in and do a presentation in the fall when COVID hopefully is allows us to meet closer together, because I think it's for an all staff meeting, which we would love to include council into that discussion, because I found it somewhat uplifting, but also somewhat realistic in regards to what we have faced for the past year and the fact that we've all faced it together, and the outlets that we have had in the past are somewhat removed because everybody's facing the COVID-19 situation, and it's impacted everybody from individuals, households, businesses, and societies, and everybody else. That is my report.
Excellent. Thank you so much, CAO. May I have a motion to accept for information? Councillor Ryan.
Thank you, Your Worship. I move that the correspondence and information report ending March 22nd, 2021 be received for information. And just a comment, yeah, I like the other members of council received this letter from Mr. Muir, and I just want to say thank you to Mr. Muir for sending that along and recognizing that the amount of work that we put in. It's very nice to receive something that is positive. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ryan. Councillor Overwater.
I just reiterate one of the relaxing tips that Dr. Jody Carrington told us. And I'm going to read it to you whether you want to hear it or not, but you might want to try it when all of a sudden after some of these meetings, our shoulders are wrapped around our ears. She said, take a breath, learn to relax, drop your tongue from the roof of your mouth, relax your jaw, relax your shoulders, wiggle your toes, and breathe. So after our meeting today, everybody needs to do that and you'll be calm and relaxed.
Excellent.
That's all I wanted to say.
Excellent advice. All right, any further comments, questions, or concerns regarding the report? Seeing none, I'll call for a vote. All in favor and opposed. Motion is carried. All right, so that brings us to a closed session of council. I'm going to read our very quickly our closed session information again. There are two ways for the public to continue participation. First, you can click the meeting button and you can leave the meeting and watch the Town of Old's website and Facebook page for live updates as to when council shall return. Then administration will post what time the meeting will convene, and we will let you back in on the virtual meeting if you'd like to do it that way. Or you can stay on in the virtual meeting platform. Administration will move all meeting attendees into the waiting room. And once council has done their session, watch again for Facebook and our website to show you what time we'll be back. And then we will be back at the meeting at that time. So at this point in time, may I have a motion to go to a closed session? Councillor Overwater.
Thank you, Worship. Yes, I move we go to a closed session, FOIP Section 17, FOIP Section 25.
Excellent. Comments, questions, concerns? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor and opposed. And that motion carries. Thank you so much. And we'll have Mr. Fox do his magic.
Who's staying in the meeting?
Oh, sorry, yes, we will have council, AO, and legislative clerk.
Can we do section 25 first? Because I would like for Director Andrew and Director Linderman to stay for that one.
Okay.
And, the legislative clerk and myself.
And then we'll have, well, I think those are both the same. We'll discuss that in camera. Okay, questions, comments, concerns on that motion? Seeing none, I'll call for a vote. All in favor and opposed. Motion is carried. All right, it's 3:55, so I'll call today's meeting back to order. I believe we have a rise and report. Who would like to make that? Councillor Overwater.
Thank you, Worship. I move that the Town Council respect Mountain View County Council's decision to end voluntary negotiations of our fire services sub-agreement, and that the Town of Olds resolves to enter into step 2 mediation outlined in section 19 of our intermunicipal collaboration framework agreement.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Comments, questions, concerns regarding this motion? Seeing none, I'll call for a vote. All in favor and opposed. That motion is unanimous. Thank you very much, everybody. Anything else?
There's
Seeing,
another motion.
ask for somebody to make an adjournment motion. Councillor?
Second point of order, isn't there a second motion?
There's a second motion.
Oh, there is. Okay. Yeah, sorry. Councillor, who would like to make that motion? Councillor Overwater again? Or Councillor?
Yeah, sure. Somebody else can.
Councillor? Black?
Okay, and that's, I move that the town council requests the county accepts this motion as a request to commence to the mediation step in our mutually agreed upon dispute resolution process, correct?
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Comments, questions, concerns regarding that motion? Seeing none, I'll call for a vote. All in favor and opposed. That motion carries as well. All right, now we're on to Councillor Ryan's adjournment motion, correct?
Correct.
If anybody else has anything else? Thank you very much, everybody. We are adjourned.
Thank
Thanks,
you.